Check out carmarshal.com. The link is in the description. They help support us.
Revealed, U.S. spy operation that manipulates social media. Military's sock puppet software creates fake online identities to spread pro-American propaganda. Jeff Jarvis, Washington shows the morals of a clumsy spammer. The U.S. military is developing software that will let it secretly manipulate social media sites by using fake online personas to influence internet conversations and spread pro-American propaganda. A Californian corporation has been awarded a contract with United States Central Command, CENTCOM, which oversees U.S. armed operations in the Middle East and Central Asia, to develop what is described as an online persona management service that will allow one U.S. serviceman or woman to control up to 10 separate identities based all over the world. The project has been likened by web experts to China's attempts to control and restrict free speech on the Internet. Critics are likely to complain that it will allow the U.S. military to create a false consensus in online conversations, crowd out unwelcome opinions and smother commentaries or reports that do not correspond with its own objectives. The discovery that the U.S. military is developing false online personalities, known to users of social media as sock puppets, could also encourage other governments, private companies, and non-government organizations to do the same. The CENTCOM contract stipulates that each fake online persona must have a convincing background, history, and supporting details, and that up to 50 US-based controllers should be able to operate false identities from their workstations without fear of being discovered by sophisticated adversaries. CENTCOM spokesman Commander Bill Speaks said, "The technology supports classified blogging activities on foreign language websites to enable CENTCOM to counter violent extremist and enemy propaganda outside the U.S." He said none of the interventions would be in English, as it would be unlawful to address U.S. audiences with such technology, and any English language use of social media by CENTCOM was always clearly attributed. The languages in which the interventions are conducted include Arabic, Farsi, Urdu, and Pashto. CENTCOM said it was not targeting any US-based websites in English or any other language, and specifically said it was not targeting Facebook or Twitter. Once developed, the software could allow U.S. service personnel, working around the clock in one location, to respond to emerging online conversations with any number of coordinated messages, blog posts, chat room posts, and other interventions. Details of the contract suggest this location would be MacDill Air Force Base near Tampa, Florida, home of U.S. Special Operations Command. CENTCOM's contract requires for each controller the provision of one virtual private server located in the United States and others appearing to be outside the U.S. to give the impression the fake personas are real people located in different parts of the world. It also calls for traffic mixing, blending the persona controller's internet usage with the usage of people outside CENTCOM in a manner that must offer excellent cover and powerful deniability. The multiple persona contract is thought to have been awarded as part of a program called Operation Earnest Voice, OEV, which was first developed in Iraq as a psychological warfare weapon against the online presence of Al-Qaeda supporters and others ranged against coalition forces. Since then, OEV is reported to have expanded into a $200 million program and is thought to have been used against jihadists across Pakistan, Afghanistan, and the Middle East. OEV is seen by senior U.S. commanders as a vital counter-terrorism and counter-radicalization program. In evidence to the U.S. Senate's Armed Services Committee last year, General David Petraeus, then commander of CENTCOM, described the operation as an effort to counter extremist ideology and propaganda and to ensure that credible voices in the region are heard. He said the U.S. military's objective was to be first with the truth. This month Petraeus' successor, General James Mattis, told the same committee that OEV supports all activities associated with degrading the enemy narrative, including web engagement and web-based product distribution capabilities. CENTCOM confirmed that the $2.76 million contract was awarded to Intrepid, a newly formed corporation registered in Los Angeles. It would not disclose whether the multiple persona project is already in operation or discuss any related contracts. Nobody was available for comment at Intrepid. In his evidence to the Senate committee, Jen Mattis said, OEV seeks to disrupt recruitment and training of suicide bombers, deny safe havens for our adversaries, and counter extremist ideology and propaganda. He added that CENTCOM was working with our coalition partners to develop new techniques and tactics the U.S. could use to counter the adversary in the cyber domain. According to a report by the Inspector General of the U.S. Defense Department in Iraq, OEV was managed by the multinational forces rather than CENTCOM. Asked whether any UK military personnel had been involved in OEV, Britain's Ministry of Defence said it could find no evidence. The MOD refused to say whether it had been involved in the development of persona management programs, saying, "We don't comment on cyber capability." OEV was discussed last year at a gathering of electronic warfare specialists in Washington, D.C., where a senior CENTCOM officer told delegates that its purpose was to communicate critical messages and to counter the propaganda of our adversaries. Persona management by the U.S. military would face legal challenges if it were turned against citizens of the U.S., where a number of people engaged in sock puppetry have faced prosecution. Last year, a New York lawyer who impersonated a scholar was sentenced to jail after being convicted of criminal impersonation and identity theft. It is unclear whether a persona management program would contravene UK law. Legal experts say it could fall foul of the Forgery and Counterfeiting Act 1981, which states that a person is guilty of forgery if he makes a false instrument, with the intention that he or another shall use it to induce somebody to accept it as genuine, and by reason of so accepting it to do or not to do some act to his own or any other person's prejudice. However, this would apply only if a website or social network could be shown to have suffered prejudice as a result. This article was amended on March 18, 2011 to remove references to Facebook and Twitter, introduced during the editing process, and to add a comment from CENTCOM, received after publication, that it is not targeting those sites. Since you're here, we have a small favor to ask. More people are reading The Guardian than ever, but advertising revenues across the media are falling fast. And unlike many news organizations, we haven't put up a paywall. We want to keep our journalism as open as we can. So you can see why we need to ask for your help. The Guardian's independent, investigative journalism takes a lot of time, money, and hard work to produce. But we do it because we believe our perspective matters, because it might well be your perspective, too. I appreciate there not being a paywall. It is more democratic for the media to be available for all and not a commodity to be purchased by a few. I'm happy to make a contribution so others with less means still have access to information. Thomasini Fr.
Does the government work for us, or do we work for the government? Tonight, what if the Constitution no longer applied? What if the whole purpose of the Constitution was to limit the government? What if Congress's enumerated powers in the Constitution no longer limited Congress, but were actually used as a justification to extend Congress's authority over every realm of human life? What if the president, meant to be an equal to Congress, has instead become a democratically elected, term-limited monarch? What if the president assumed that everything he did was legal just because he's the president? What if he could interrupt your regularly scheduled radio and TV programming for a special message from him? What if he could declare war on his own? What if he could read your emails and your texts without a search warrant? What if he could kill you without warning? What if Supreme Court justices no longer looked to the Constitution to determine the constitutionality of a law, but rather simply to what justices who preceded them thought about it? What if the rights and principles guaranteed in the Constitution have been so distorted in the past 200 years as to be unrecognizable by the founders? What if the 50 states were no longer sovereign entities, equals to each other, and parents of the federal government they voluntarily constituted? What if the states were mere provinces of a totally nationalized and fully centralized government? What if the Constitution was amended stealthily, not by constitutional amendments duly ratified by the states, but by the constant and persistent expansion of the federal government's role in our lives? What if the federal government decided if its own powers were proper and constitutional? What if the Constitution were no longer the supreme law of the land? What if you needed a license from the government to speak, to assemble, or to protest against the government? What if the government didn't like what you planned to say, and so it didn't give you the license? What if the right to keep and bear arms only applied to the government? What if posse comitatus, the federal law that prohibits our military from occupying our streets, were no longer in effect? What if the government considered the military an adequate dispenser of domestic law enforcement? What if cops looked and acted like troops and you couldn't distinguish the military from the police? What if you were not secure in your person, in your papers, and in your property? What if federal agents could write their own search warrants in defiance of the Constitution? What if the government could decide when you were and were not entitled to a jury trial? What if the government could take your property whenever it wanted? What if the government could continue prosecuting you until it got the verdict it wanted? What if the government could force you to testify against yourself simply by labeling you a domestic terrorist? What if the government could torture you until you said what the government wanted to hear? What if people running for president actually supported torture? What if the government tortured your children to get to you? What if government judges and government lawyers intimidated juries into convicting the innocent? What if the government could send you to your death and your innocence meant nothing so long as the government's procedures were followed? What if America's prison population, the largest in the world, was a cruel and unusual way for a country to be free? What if half the prison population never harmed anyone but themselves? What if the people had no rights except those the government chose to let them have? What if the states had no rights except to do as the federal government commanded? What if our elected officials didn't really live among us, but instead all had their hearts and homes in Washington, D.C.? What if the government could strip you of your rights because of where your mother was when you were born? What if the income tax was unconstitutional? What if the states were convinced to give up their representation in Congress? What if the government tried to ban you from using a substance in your body that is older than the government itself? What if voting didn't mean anything anymore because both political parties stand for big government? What if the government could write any law, regulate any behavior, and tax any event? The Constitution be damned. What if the government was the reason we don't have a Constitution anymore? What if you could love your country but hate what the government has done to it? What if sometimes to love your country you had to alter or abolish the government? What if Jefferson was right? What if that government is best which governs least? What if I'm right? What if the government is wrong? What if it is dangerous to be right when the government is wrong? What if it is better to perish fighting for freedom than to live as a slave? What if freedom's greatest hour of danger is now?
Hey Charlotte County, this is Charlotte County COPWATCH, and I wanted to explain what fair use is. You can use pieces of news articles if you're doing it for news reporting, you have commentary, and you're doing it for education purposes. So that's what fair use is, as you can see right here. Another reason why I wanted to make this video is to let you know I have just joined with Patreon. A nice thing with Patreon, I make no money on YouTube. They took the money away years ago, and so this is another way to give, and it's a nice thing too because you can give monthly. You can give $1, $5, $10, whatever. I do 4 to 5 hours a day on trying to wake the sheeple up on how corrupt it is and different ways that you can fight the corruption. So Patreon is a way that you can do it, and then of course the old way is still there. Donate to Charlotte County COPWATCH with PayPal or credit card. So keep that in mind. 4 to 5 hours a day. I make no money, but the corruption happened to me and I'm sick of it, so I'm trying to wake people up. But my wife would love it if if we could get some help out there. There's 47,000 subscribers. Just think if each one of you subscribers just gave let's say actually yes, $1 $1 a month. 47,000 subscribers gave $1 a month. That would be awesome. That's not going to happen. But anyways, that would be great if it did happen. But, you know, do the math in your head. Just think about it. Like I said, 4 to 5 hours a day. I get no money from YouTube. YouTube has gone nuts. You can't do anything anymore. They're taking the money away everywhere. So these are a couple different ways that you can still help out with all this time that I put in. And as you know, I'm in a special situation where, you know, at least I can do it. You know, 4 to 5 hours a day. We have a cleaning company during the day. That's what allows me to do this, and we're debt free. So this is my hobby. I don't go fishing and all that other crap. I try to save the world. So help me out to make the wife happy, man. In fact, if you guys did give $1 a day, and there was 47,000 of you, and you did it, and each of you gave $1, and that was every month, oh my God, yes, I could quit. I could start suing them. Another idea, too, that we have is, you know, if I got, you know, some funds, we could actually contact everyone that has been ticketed and or arrested and put in jail and start sending them postcards to let them know we're here, and to see if everything went all right, and if it didn't, find out their story. So we could even do more investigations and more lawsuits. Lawsuits take money. So just think about that. You know, 47,000 of you so far right now. You know, $1 a day. I mean, $1 a month on Patreon, or $5 a month Patreon, 10, 20, whatever. Just do the math in your head. Help out. This is a lot of work every single day. Thanks.